All right, in our first weekly review, we are going to be looking at being able to use combining like terms and the distributive property. So if you could take a moment and write down the problem, 2x minus 4y plus 3y minus 5x. And so if you need to pause the video and write that down, go ahead and do so. So looking at what we have here, when I go to look at the like terms, what I notice is that I have x's and y's. And so I could see that out of the four terms that I have a positive 2x and I have a negative 5x. Combining those would make a negative 3x. I also have y terms. I have a negative 4y term and a positive 3y term. And if I combine those, that will give me a negative 1y. And there's my expression simplified. Now I use a technique by using color and then underlining with different types of line to make sure that I've used all four terms. I know that some people will take and very lightly cross out the terms after they use the terms. I know that some people will take and draw lines so that they can see that this is a positive 2x and a negative 4y and a positive 3y and a negative 5x, and then they'll use their four terms from there to be able to combine. So whatever is working for you, keep working, keep doing that. Keep in mind that weekly reviews are just helping us review concepts that we've already learned that we're going to be using again this semester as we incorporate some new material, new concepts in with these ones. So let's look at our next problem. And as I read it aloud, you go ahead and write it down. So it's 3 times the quantity, 2x minus 5, plus 4y minus 5x. So if you need to pause the video to complete writing it down, please go ahead and do so. So when I look at this problem, the first thing I notice is that I'm going to have to use the distributive property. And that distributive property is going to occur here and here. And so I'm going to have to multiply 2x times 3, 6x, and then multiply 3 times the negative 5, negative 15. The distributive property stops right there because that's the end of that quantity. The parenthesis signals that that is the end of the distributive property. So I am just going to simply write down the rest of the terms, the positive 4y and the negative 5x. Now the next thing that I'm going to focus on then is being able to combine the like terms. And what I notice is that there are 4 different types of terms here. So you can use whatever strategy worked for you. We kind of reviewed those briefly in the last problems. If you want to take and see that we have a 6x, a negative 15, a 4y, and a negative 5x. And I'm going to start by combining those x terms, a positive 6x, and a negative 5x, and that will leave me with 1x. Keep in mind I don't need to write that 1 there, that's implied to be there. I then notice that I have a y term, and there's not a term that matches up with that, so I'm just going to be able to drop that down and make that a positive 4y. And then I notice that I have a constant is just a minus 15, and there's no other constant in the problem, and so that's going to drop down to my answer, and there's my simplified expression, 1x plus 4y minus 15. All right, let's take a moment and write down this last problem here. We have 5 minus 2 times the quantity x plus 3. And so now the first thing I see with this problem And once again, if you need to take the video and pause it to write it down, go ahead and do so. But the first thing I see is that I need to take and do the distributive property. Now, I'm going to need to be very careful here, because when I go to do the distributive property, I need to make sure that I am multiplying by a -2. So that means I'm going to take and drop down the 5, and then I'm going to do this distributive property, -2 times x, -2x, and then multiply -2 times 3 minus 6. Now, after I do that, I am ready to work on combining like terms. Now, I only have 3 terms, so I'm going to look for variable terms first. I see that I have a 5, a -2x, and a -6. That -2x does not match up with anything, so I'm going to bring it down to my answer. But then I notice that I do have a +5 and a -6. So that -2x will drop down, and then I will combine the +5 minus 6 to a -1, and there's my expression simplified. Now, to be honest with you, this is one of the most missed types of problems, and I want to show you why, because sometimes if we know those common mistakes, then we can avoid them. And if we are taking something like we will be in a few minutes here, a multiple choice type question, the correct answer, -2x minus 1, and the answer with the most common mistake will be there. So we need to know how to avoid it. So if we look at this one, what is the most common mistake that happens here is that students start at the left and they see that 5 minus 2 and they subtract and make it a 3, and then do the distributive property, and you can see that we get a dramatically different answer than what the actual answer is. Okay, and so the reason why that this is a mistake or a non-example is that we violated order of operations. Order of operations, parentheses, exponents, multiply and divide in the order that they appear left to right, and subtract in the order that they appear left to right. Our distributive property actually fits in with the multiplication. And so I have a choice in this problem. Do I do the distributive property first, or do I do this subtraction first? And if we look at our order of operations, we should definitely do that distributive property first. Okay, so just wanted to make you aware of a really common mistake that we do with this type of problem, especially when we have a constant and then we have either an addition or subtraction sign and the number.